Hey everyone, I'm Ravi Kiran and I'll be the speaker for today. Let me quickly introduce myself. I graduated from MBIT in 2018. So this was the time during which I was active in competitive programming. I primarily used CodeChef, in which I had a rating of 5 stars, and I've also been in the top 20 Indians on the rank list for a few contests. Currently, I'm working as a site reliability engineer at LinkedIn. So this will be the overview for today. If you're completely new to competitive programming, I'll give you a brief overview. I'll be spending most of the time in C++ STL. So the level will be pretty basic, but by the end of the talk, you should be able to pick something up even if you're used to programming. Uh, After this, I'll be giving you some advice on solving problems and some of secrets that I myself use to perform well in contests and some resources to help you get started and to improve. So if you're completely new to competitive programming, this is what happens. You'll be given a problem statement and your task is to write a program to solve that problem. So your program is expected to take some input and produce an output. That is simple enough. What makes it competitive is the fact that there are time constraints. So two types of time constraints apply. One is that you're expected to complete writing your program and submitting it correctly within a given amount of time. Usually in short contests, this is about a few hours. There's also the time constraint for your program itself. Typically, this is about 1 second. Your program is expected to read all the input, process it, and give out the output, which is compared to with the correct output. And this is expected to finish usually within a second. Sometimes more complex questions require a lot more time, but that will be specified in the question itself. So basically, that is what competitive programming is in a nutshell. You'll be given a problem and you are supposed to write a program to solve that. And there will be time constraint. Any question so far? All right, I'll continue. So why do people pick up competitive programming? One of the most popular reasons is that it's done as a form of entertainment, as a sport. It's even called sport programming. And ACM ICPC is one of the most popular programming contests where colleges from across the world participate to win the ACM ICPC Cup. Other than this, there's also Google's Code Jam and Facebook's Hacker Cup. And usually these are team challenges. And you form teams from your college and take part. Usually, if you clear the regionals, they even fly you to the center where you'll be given everything from a laptop and computer and problems, and you'll be expected to solve. So yeah, the team which completes the problems first and correctly is the one that wins. So correctness of a program is seen simply based on its output. The judge is something that you submit the program to. If for a given set of inputs, your output matches what is expected, then your program is said to have passed. Then you get a green tick or an AC or passed, completed. So people also use competitive programming to learn, practice, and improve on their coding skills. Well, you expect that because the more you code, the better you become, right? But the main reason why students take up competitive programming is for placement or interviews. So statistically, it has been seen that people who perform well in competitive programs generally get placed in the top companies. And there is also this ongoing debate about whether whiteboarding in interviews is a good practice or not. That is where you'll be called to an office. Well, usually you were called to an office. In this situation, I'm not sure if that applies. But yeah, you're called to an office and you'll be presented a problem. And typically it's a whiteboard where you write the code and explain your logic. So the debate is that it tests the pro of this is that tests your data structures and algorithms knowledge. But the con of it is that it's a time constraint. It's not typically how everyday programming works, right? But whether we like this or not, unfortunately, at this point, that's how the industry works. And to to get a good job, to put it bluntly, you'll have to improve your programming skills. Any questions so far? Cool. I'll continue. Yeah. So how exactly a problem is presented? This is how a typical problem looks like. It's a very simple question actually. So you'll be given a story. There's usually a story. And from that, you'll have to figure out what the author is trying to tell you. This is usually a task in itself, let me tell you. Sometimes there are long stories and you can just skim through all of that, get to the bottom, and you'll know what to do. But a lot of times you're forced to read the story and actually understand what the question is about. So usually there's a problem statement, and you'll also have the input format, which tells you how the input will be given to your program. Usually you won't have to worry about this much. You can just use standard input and output like C in and C out. Sometimes in some online judges, you'll be given functions to fill out, or you'll have to specify the files from which to read. But in most cases, you just have to use standard input and output. You'll also be given constraints on the input. I'll read out this question and I'll explain it soon. But constraints tell you how big or how small the values are, so that you'll be able to use appropriate data types. And then there'll also be the output format, which tells you what output the judge expects. So sometimes some judges expect uh, output to be space separated, or some have new line separated. So when I say a judge, what I mean is that you submit it to another program or another website, which will basically run your program. So that is what a judge is. So any questions so far on how the structure of a program looks like? If you have a question, you can also unmute yourself. All right. So I'll proceed. Let's read this question. This is what a question typically looks like. There's a story, like I said. So in this case, you are in charge of the cake for your niece's birthday and have decided that the cake will have one candle for each year of her total age. When she blows out the candles, she'll only be able to blow out the tallest ones. Your task is to find out how many candles she can successfully blow out. So to take an example, if your niece is turning 4 years old and the cake will have 4 candles, height of the candles are 4, 4, 1, and 3. So it doesn't matter what the unit is, these are the inputs given to you. She will be able to blow out 2 candles successfully, since the tallest candles are of height 4 and there are 2 such candles. You can see these 2 candles, they'll be blown out first. And the input format is like this. So this is a story. This is the example. You'll be given these as inputs, the heights of the candles and the age, and you'll have to output how many candles will be blown out by your niece. So the input format is like this. It says the first line contains a single integer n, denoting the number of candles on the cake. So you can just completely ignore this statement that says the first line. You don't have to worry about what line it is, how it's given to you. You just have to read one single integer n. And then second line contains n space separated integers, where each integer describes the height of the candle. Again, it doesn't matter to you whether it's space separated or new line separated. You just have to read from the standard input. So in this case, you'll have to read it n times. And the constraints are these. You'll not have more than 10 power 5 candles, and each candle will not be greater than 10 power 7. So constraints are important because it tells you what type of data type to use. Here we can use an integer because all of those values will fit. For example, if you have AR of I greater than something large, say 10 power 15 or something of that range, you won't be able to use an integer because it will overflow your integer. You'll have to use something like a long integer. And then the output format it expects is to just print out the count in a new line. So this is a question. Any questions about the question itself? Okay, so now that you know the question, does anybody have an approach to solve this? This is your chance. If anyone has an idea on how to solve this, please unmute yourself and explain your approach. Anyone? Okay. So let's see typically how we think of solving something like this. So we'll need the tallest candles, right? So the first, at least to me, the first thing that comes to mind is if we sort it from the end, we'll see what the tallest candles are, and then we can count those. But do we need to sort? Do we really need to sort? Let's see, I'll tell you, I'll give you the solution. So another thing that you would think is to use an array to solve this. But again, if you think carefully, you don't even need to use an array. You can use an array, you can use sort, and that will solve the problem for you. But let's see how you can do it in a much better way. So I'll be showing you the program in the next slide. So I'll be going line by line to explain what this does. Any questions so far? Okay, we have some approach. Find the tallest first and then count the occurrences. Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah. So that will be two passes. In the first pass, you find what the tallest is, which I think is you'll have a good idea about how to find the maximum element in an array. Once or after one pass, you find what the tallest is. Then you can go through the array again and count occurrence of that. Yeah, that's a good approach. Complexity wise, even that is linear and that will pass solution. So let's see how we can do that in a single pass. So if we come to line number 7, here I've declared n, which tells us how many elements will be there. And tallest represents what the tallest candle that we have seen so far. And count tells us how many of such a candle we have seen so far. So like I said, you just have to read the n value from standard input. And then we loop through each of those values. So from 0 to n, we keep doing a cin, which will give us the value of the array. So in first, what we do is we check if the number that we've just read is greater than the tallest candle we've seen so far. So the first element that we read, this will always be true because tallest is set to 0. And if you look at the constraint, the value will at least be equal to 1. So in the first case, this will be 2 and the tallest will be set to that candle's height and our count will be set as 1. In all subsequent cases, only if we see that we have seen a taller candle, we'll enter this and reset the value of count. Otherwise, if we see a candle of the same height, which is tallest, then we increment the count. And then by the end of that, we can just display what the count is.